I'd like to call to order the Wilsonville City Council meeting on July 19th at 7:15 p.m. and we'll start with the roll call.
Councillor West.
Here.
Council President Ockervall. Here. Councillor Lehan.
Here.
Mayor Fitzgerald.
Here.
And Councillor Linville is excused.
Thank you. We will now do the Pledge of Allegiance. Give you a minute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do I have a motion to approve the order of agenda?
Your Honor, I move to approve the order of agenda.
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion passes 4-0. Just briefly, I do have some points on mayor's business to bring up about recent events. We all had a nice break over the holiday with the July 4th, and I do appreciate all the citizen and business and everybody who participated in having a safe 4th of July in Wilsonville. Our next city council meeting is on August 2nd. So at this point, I'll give some news on some of the activities I've been participating in as mayor since our last meeting. Last week, Councillor Linville and I attended and testified before the Oregon Aviation Board regarding the pending Aurora State Airport Master Plan process. The Oregon Aviation Board had met prior to that meeting in executive session to consider the results of the Court of Appeals ruling in favor of the city and how to proceed on the new Aurora State Master Plan. They decided to hold an hour-long executive session in about 2 weeks from that meeting on July 15th to determine their next step. So updating the Aurora State Airport Master Plan to comply with Oregon public process and land use laws has been a key city objective for the past 10 years. We're glad to see that the Aviation Department intends to update the plan. In fact, at this July 17th meeting that we attended, the Aviation Board awarded a nearly $1 million contract to update the Aurora State Airport Master Plan. We continue as a city to seek a balanced representation of community interests, local homeowners associations, community planning organizations, and conservation and nonprofit public interest organizations regarding this master plan. I, in fact, formally requested a more balanced representation for the Participant Advisory Committee over 30 days ago, and I still have not received a reply. At the meeting, however, the Aviation Board did not change the makeup of the committee. Instead, they said they would form a different citizen advisory panel, and that panel, we believe, does not rise to the level of importance of citizen involvement that we think is necessary for this big plan. So due to a lack of confidence in the board's ability to conduct a master planning process that is fair and robust, includes enough fair and robust community involvement to the degree that we think our citizens have been asking for 10 years, Mayor Asher of Aurora and I have asked for federal intervention by the funders. Recent speaking engagements, I spoke at the Clackamas County Business Alliance Mayoral Summit and also the Westside Economic Alliance Mayors Forum, and also heard from several other mayors at those events. Just this last week, Council President Ockervall and I attended the reception celebrating the recent completion of the class of Citizens Academy out at Town Center Park, and it was a really nice day. I appreciate everything that all the city staff did to put on a great Citizens Academy, and it was really fun talking to people about what they got out of that. And so thank you, Mr. Cosgrove, for putting on a good Citizens Academy.
Ms. Monahan.
Ms. Monahan, I mean, your entire staff.
Thank you.
Everybody was involved, and Ms. Monahan did lead it, so thank you. I also met with the Washington County Board of Commissioners Chair Catherine Harrington. Wilsonville is in 2 counties. It's mostly Clackamas County, but Chair Harrington wants to meet periodically and make sure that we collaborate on things, you know, even as in terms of our emergency preparedness and various things that they can help us with. So we had a very good meeting. I also attended a Washington County Mayor's meeting led by Hillsborough Mayor Steve Calloway, and at all of these meetings you have a chance to learn what the other cities are up against and sometimes how we can work together to get better outcomes. The Washington County Coordinating Committee is a group of cities in Washington County who also meet periodically on some of those issues. And at that meeting, we voted to send a letter to JPAC and Metro raising issues of concern regarding incorporating the regional mobility policy update into the 2018 Regional Transportation Plan. I also heard another presentation by ODOT on the Washington County projects for transportation, including the State Transportation Investment Program. Isn't that STIP is, yeah. I got that right? Okay. So there's lots of plans, and that looks ahead to 2024 to 2027 projects. And lastly, met with the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee where we heard a review of the Metropolitan Transportation Improvement Program amendments for funding Phase 1 construction of the I-205 Abernathy Bridge and Seismic Improvement Project and Highway 217 projects. We also discussed a draft of the Regional Traffic Congestion Pricing Study. And coming up on July 24th is a 65th anniversary of the Korean War Armistice Commemoration Ceremony, and it's going to be this Saturday, the 24th at 10 a.m. at the Korean War Memorial in Town Center Park. So I encourage you to join me at that. So thank you. We will now go to our communications section of the meeting and hear about the PGE storm recap.
Going here. Good evening, everyone. Mayor Fitzgerald and council members. Brian, hi. City staff, thanks for having us. I'm Troy Gagliano. I'm PGE's local government affairs rep, covering, we have a vacancy on our team, and many of you might have worked with Randy Ely, my boss, and he sends his regards. He's on some well-earned vacation time. So with me tonight also is Tiffany Delgado. Tiffany's our key customer manager for PGE and serves the city of Wilsonville. Tonight we're going to hear from Larry Beckedahl. Larry's our Senior Vice President of Advanced Energy Delivery, as well as Bill Messner. Bill covers everything. He's our Director of Wildfire Mitigation and Resiliency. So they'll talk about things we're doing specifically to enhance resiliency in the city after the February ice storms. As you know, we had fires in Labor Day last year as well. So they'll talk about some Wilsonville specific things as well as more general company-wide strategy for resiliency and emergency preparedness. So with that, maybe I'll have Larry come over here and I'll try to pull up the slides here for you, Larry. Share.
Thank you, Troy.
Yeah.
Mayor Fitzgerald, council members, pleasure to be here. Thank you for having us. City Manager Brian, nice to meet you as well, and staff. So thank you for having us. Boy, it's been a year, and I know we'll be talking about a number of things here tonight. But you know, as Troy was indicating, I think back to this last year, and for us. You know, all of us, really, the pandemic was first. This time last year, we were dealing with a microburst that blew down 3 miles of our 500 kV steel towers over by Madras area. First time that has ever happened. Following that came the wildfires in Labor Day. And that was, again, one of those events that we said, wow, that's a winter wind coming down from the north, blowing into the area in a weird way, and really causing what was a 1 in 50 year event. Then came February, when we had the ice bubble, I like to refer to it, come in. And I know Wilsonville here, the city, along with Woodburn, Oregon City, seem to be the center of the mass of ice, I'll call it. And I know Bill will be talking in depth a little bit about the event. But following that, we just recently had the heat bubble. And to think that that came in, and for our area, 116, 117 degrees is just unheard of. And you get to be thinking that, wait, 1 in 40, 1 in 40, 1 in 50, 1 in 100 pandemic, what's different here? And so I challenge us all as we think together to think differently and to begin to wonder, what can we do? How do we, as critical service providers, think about the citizens and the communities, the customers that we serve. And so tonight we'd like to talk a little bit about that. And as we think about the ice storm that was in February, I know we're wanting to concentrate in that. We have roughly a little over 14,000 metered customers here in the city of Wilsonville. And during that ice storm, we had almost half, 6,600 of those customers were out. Some for only 30 minutes, but some are up to 10 days. And as we think about that, any one of us with our families and being in a pandemic with either teaching at home or having family members at home, how critical it became that trying to restore energy. And so, again, I know Bill will go into some of the details of the event, but those are, as we think back, what has happened. And we're doing the after action events on each one of these, and we've been changing some of the things that we think about. How do we harden the system? And along with that, we're saying to ourselves, we need to decarbonize, and we need to electrify, and that's a big part of this. So when we think about electric transportation, and talking with Brian back here, we were just talking about the buses, et cetera. Cars, 40% of the carbon that's emitted in the state of Oregon is due to transportation. So again, we're going to be targeting and thinking about how do we address that. But does that give us an opportunity to think about resiliency as well? So how do we, because now transportation along with, and there's some really good ideas out there in terms of, can you charge a home? If you've seen the lightning ads for the F-150 and you can charge your home for 3 days during some sort of an outage, now I've got some resiliency. How do I think about that? So it's a large battery that gets charged, that could be used differently. It's mobile. We think of school buses the same way. When they come to a center, can they be a battery, a backup? Instead of running that diesel generator, maybe you're thinking about, batteries and doing that as well. So we think of those things and trying to harden and be resilient. So in our goals, by 2030, we will have reduced 80% of the carbon from our energy here, and by 2040, we hope to hit zero emissions. That's aggressive. That's as good as anybody in the United States today. And so we believe in it. We think that that's the right thing to do. And so, but at the same time, we need resiliency. And so we're going to have to build that in. The damage that was caused and the recovery events, one of the things that I will apologize was our communications. It was very, very apparent to us. I had numerous occasions to speak with various city, county officials. I know that Maria Pope, my boss, the CEO, reached out with Randy Ely to Brian, and I would encourage, if at any time you need to reach out to us, feel free. I know you can go through Tiffany and you can go through our team, but if you feel you want to reach out to us, more than happy to work with you. We've been working with the the county of Clackamas on some special projects as we think about trees and how do trees and power lines get along. During normal days, we trim back and we're okay. But when you add an inch or 2 inches of ice onto those trees, you will see them bend and break at unbelievable levels. And so that's what happened during that February storm. And so for us to recover, we have to think now about where do we actually cut back? How do we remove? How do we isolate? How do we think about undergrounding? How do we think about tree wire? How do we think about steel poles? Things that we can do differently to make sure that we're resilient in the face of the storm. During that event, we had substations with 3 transmission lines into them. And I know some that were in this area. Normally you lose maybe 1, possibly 2, but never an occurrence of where you lost all 3. And when you do lose that, then you've lost the substation, you lose the 10,000 customers or so that are affiliated with that substation, and until you get those transmission lines up, you don't get to start to work in the distribution side. But what we found in the communications, one, getting word out and trying to be as transparent as we can to let people know what the status is really important. We did start something now where we're sending text messages out, so customers receive a text message as soon as there is an outage. We'll give you our best estimate at that time, and when it comes back on, you'll get another text message. So trying to use technology to help us in that light. But when you get into the major storm, there is more that is related to sequencing and understanding how many crews you had. We had more crews in here than we've ever had in our history of as a utility. And so thinking about communication, how do you inform? You may know what's going on down in the line center, but how does that get communicated to the customers? And so we're really working hard to improve in that area. I think before we jump into the storms, I also want to just mention about the collaboration that we have had with the city of Wilsonville, and very excited about the Green Futures Impact. Again, thinking about decarbonization. And so you're buying power from a new solar project in Gillum County is going to be very exciting. And we're glad that you're participating in that. The Electric Avenue here by the library, the smart streetlight project that's going on, I think there's a lot more that we can do. And I'm looking forward to, as we think about, we're doing fleets with communities now, planning for and designing what does that look like for charging stations. And we've been working with the legislature to try and think through how we build out that infrastructure. But when we build out that infrastructure, we think about resiliency. So I share that with you, is that it's pretty exciting as we go forward. We're glad to be a partner here, and we contribute through our paying of our right-of-way and fees and permitting fees and those sorts of things, but it's more about the cooperation. How we do the work, how do we take care of the customers, and so when I think of permits, I think about cooperation between our teams. It has to go hand in hand to make sure that we're meeting the demands of customers. We do have 51 employees living here in Wilsonville, and so we are building a new center, our control center, just north of Wilsonville, here up in the Tualatin area. I have a suspicion we're going to have a few more employees coming your way. So people love to be down here and love the community. We do have a lot in common, as I mentioned, the essential services that we provide. We both care about ensuring that the energy system for Wilsonville continues to be safe and reliable, and we're both working to make sure we can respond quickly when disasters do take place. So I'm going to turn it over to Bill Messner, who's our Director of Wildfire Mitigation and Restoration, and have Bill walk us through the storm a little bit, and then we'll close out.
All right, thank you, Larry. And thank you for having us today. Again, my name is Bill Messner, Director of Wildfire Mitigation and Resiliency. Larry talked a lot about what's already on this slide, but I'll just pick some of those highlights. Clearly, the storm was a very significant storm that hit our area. Multiple storms came in, one after the other. In fact, there was 3 ice storms that came in, one after the other. It accumulated an inch to 2.5 inches of ice. That also accumulated on our lines and ended up knocking those lines down. You could have an extra 1,000 pounds of extra weight that is due to that ice. So it also caused, as Larry mentioned, massive damage to our transmission lines. And so our generation fleet did very well. It was producing the whole time, but if we don't have transmission, we can't get it to the substations and can't get it to our customers ultimately. Wilsonville in particular, the conditions were very dangerous from the onset, not only for our customers, but for the crews and first responders that had to be out in that situation at the time. And as Larry mentioned, we had 47% of our customers here in this community alone that were without power from 30 minutes to 10 days. But with all of that, we do really appreciate the cooperation we had from the city of Wilsonville so we can restore power as quickly as we possibly could. But this event was an all-hands-on-deck event. And meeting on that, as Larry also mentioned, is that we had the most crews on our property that we've ever had in our 130-year history. We had crews come as far as Canada, Montana, and Colorado to help us out. What we have is really neat about our industry is we have mutual aid, so we come to the aid of other utilities as they come to our aid. We had 17 utilities also respond to us as well. The slide here is just showing you some of the images that all of you lived through, and I'm sure I don't have to even show this image to let you know that what you lived through. But as a result of this, our crews would fix one thing, and then another tree would come down and take it out again, and so it was a repetitive battle that we eventually had to overcome. But with that, we learn in any event. So we always learn. In every event we go through, we do an actions review or after actions review. We want to learn and get better. So that is what we do here in this case. And this next slide is just touching on some of those things. One of the big learnings, as Larry already mentioned, is our ability to communicate. We have to get better at that, and we've already put a lot of plans in place to get better in that aspect. Vegetation management is another issue where we can continue to partner on, as I think, as a community and as in our company as well. But vegetation, we have a really good program, I think, in our estimation of what we do on a vegetation strategy. However, in this case, we are also dealing with trees that are off right of way. And so cooperation with that and our partnership with Clackamas County about trying to see how we can get better coordinated on that so we can eliminate that hazard. And in some cases, not trim the tree, but actually take it out. I think some of those things is what we have to think about. In addition to the other strategies that we have in place, which is ductile iron poles, undergrounding tree wire, these are all things that we can always look and see how we can make our system stronger. In terms of vegetation management, we have also have crews throughout our service territory constantly working in that space. And post-storm, we actually have gone through our whole system in this circle area to make sure that, did we miss anything? What else could we repair? What other tree limbs are there? So there are some branches that are still hung up, so can we get rid of those before they come down later on? We're also looking at the system itself, and this is the second bullet really here on this slide here, is that how do we continue to minimize outages? So can we sectionalize the system? So like when one area goes down, can we isolate that so we don't lose more customers? So we're constantly looking at that, and we'll continue to do so. On this slide here, I'll start with the image, which is it's what we call our 7 steps of restoration. And really the first thing we do is we always want to make it safe. That is our first priority for our customers and our first responders. How do we make that safe? And then we go through, okay, is generation there? Okay, if generation's okay, then we go to transmission. And in this case, it was one of those storms where typically transmission is not the issue. It's really the distribution that we have to fix due to different wires coming down. But in this case, we had to repair transmission first so we can get the electrons to the substations, then we can get it to our customers. And so as you go through, and a good analogy that actually Tiffany used here today with me is that think of it as a tree. Vegetation, might as well keep with the theme. But with a tree is that as you repair the trunk, and then you go to the other branches, and then you go further out down the structure of that tree to get those power at the very end of those limbs that go out. How do we actually prepare for storms? It's a year-round process. We have plans. We are an incident management company, so think NIMS. It's the same thing that your fire department does. We have that same common language, incident commanders, PIOs, and that sort of thing, so we communicate the same way and not get lost in that communication structure. We have our plans. We test those plans, and when we have an event, we make those plans better. We have tree trimming all year long, as I mentioned. We also do inspections, and we do, in our high fire risk areas, we do those inspections yearly, and I got a slide later, I'll talk a little bit more about that. Ongoing hardening the system, and we have crews that respond 24/7, 365 days a year to serve our customers. And again, those mutual aid agreements that we have in place as an industry, so we all can respond as a utility industry. So we've had the global pandemic, we've had storms, and we had firestorms. We also plan for other hazards as well. We deal with cyber. We have cyber concerns, as you think the pipeline on the East Coast, it just went through that. We hear about those all the time. We have a whole cyber department that's keeping that door closed. And we test our employees on that. We actually fish them in our campaigns to actually see will they take the bait. But we're building up that routine so we don't. Our customers trust us with their data, and we need to protect it. We also have physical security in our company as well. So we are looking at our assets. We have a elaborate camera system, elaborate badge system to protect those assets. There are bad people in the world that want to do bad things, and so we have to protect against that. Cascadia earthquake is another event. A lot of people think about, if that's going to happen. I talk about when it's going to happen. And when that event does happen, it's going to go from Seattle all the way to California. And we have to be resilient not only as a company, but as a community, because we are going to need help in that situation. I don't say this to scare people. I just say this as we have to plan for these events. And the last item here is that we're a regional grid. And so unlike Texas, which is pretty much an island, we're regionalized. So we're part of 11 Western states, including Canada. But with that becomes other risks too. So we have to manage against that because we're dependent on each other. But that allows us, it reduces risk. It also creates some risk, but it's overall better for our customers and our community. The chevrons on the bottom is I've kind of touched on this a little bit, but we plan for emergencies, we exercise them, we do tabletop exercises with regulators and communities. I'd love to do that more with Wilsonville as well. We have system improvements, so think about seismic investments that we've done over the years. We have redundant systems. Larry mentioned the the Integrated Operations Center in Tualatin, which is designed to withstand a large earthquake, and we would have our EOC, our Emergency Operations Center there, to respond to that and get back on our feet as quickly as possible for our community. And then strategic partnerships, again, this being a great example of strategic partnership. So wildfire. Last Labor Day was a very significant event for Oregonians and throughout the whole state. Boot Lake Fire is going on right now as we speak. In terms of our immediate area, we have what we call public safety power shutoff areas, and that's the map that you see here. If you recall, last year we initiated a PSPS event, is where we proactively turned off power in the Mount Hood corridor. Since that time last year in our learning, we have added 6 more locations that we have identified as high fire risk areas, and that's what is depicted here on these images. We've reached out, we have engaged with our stakeholders to make sure that they understand what we're doing. And in fact, we have another engagement on August 5th to do a page turn on what a PSPS is and how do we execute that? What do they need from us? What do we need from them? So we make sure that we execute that as safely and as reliably as possible for our community. Those PSPS zones are designed based on risk modeling. We've done 10,000 plus iterations in a risk model that we work with an expert in that field to make sure we identify these areas. Again, we have design and construction standards, and again, we will have everything at our exposure in terms of is it tree wires and undergrounding, but what is the investment we do that reduces the risk as best as possible? We do inspections on a yearly basis in these risk areas to ensure that if there's anything that needs to be fixed, we fix it. We have operational practices. So when we go into wildfire season, so we think of really the way we're managing wildfires, there's three components to this. There's pre-season, there's wildfire season, there's post-season. And in all 3 of those areas, we are preparing for, we're in it, or we're learning from what we just went through. In California, that wildfire season is almost a year long now. In here, it used to be historically summer months. It is now basically happening in May to October. So it is growing here too. So we have to be aware of that and be prepared for it. And then we have situational conditions and awareness. So we are very much tied to the National Weather Service and Oregon Department of Forestry, and really tied into how are they behaving? Are there red flag days? If there are red flag days, how do we change our operations as a result of that?
Say, I just want to interrupt you for a second. Because of our time here, I want to make sure we do have time for any counselor questions.
All right.
And so maybe you just help me gauge this. How much, do you have a couple more slides?
This is my last slide.
Okay. I wanted to make sure I had a chance if people had questions.
All right,
Thank you.
absolutely. And I'll end it there, and we do community outreach and communication. But I will now turn it to Larry to actually, this was my last slide. Larry
Thank
has
you.
one more.
And mine's going to be really short, and that is one, we do want to partner with the city of Wilsonville, your emergency responders, in thinking about how we react in these emergencies. And so we'd like to open that door and look for further partnership. We know that you can reach out to Tiffany and Randy and Troy, they're shown here, but we'd like to think differently here. And as Bill was just mentioning, how do we work together? Because we know that, again, heat storms, wildfire threats, et cetera, are coming our way. So Mayor Fitzgerald.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, and we're open to questions.
Well, we really do appreciate you taking all the time to come and meet with us and go into that in depth. It was certainly a huge event for all of our citizens. And I know that following this presentation, we'll probably have a follow-up meeting to discuss it in more detail. Councillor Lehan, you have a question.
Well, I was hoping for more detail in terms of what you were presenting today, other than how much you're thinking about resiliency. Because we're all thinking about resiliency, but what does that mean? And what exactly are we going to do? And what took us by surprise? We were taken by surprise. I presume you were taken by surprise that we had that situation with Charbonneau, a 100% undergrounded community that has been in place for 50 years and never had anything like this happen. They're all undergrounded. 4,000 people and multiple senior assisted and other care facilities in there. And so you had a map, but I couldn't really read it because it was so teeny tiny. And but I would like to see a map. You said there were 3 transmission lines out. I'd like to see where they were coming from, where they went out, how many times did they go out? You said they went out, you fixed them, then they'd go out again. Was that the transmission lines or the distribution lines? Now, maybe we're going to get that later at this other debrief, but this completely floored me. And that community would be that vulnerable for that long when it's all underground. Now, it doesn't surprise me that Old Town, where they're all in the air, that they would have multiple problems and ongoing problems and take a long time to get fixed because there were so many overhead lines. But Charbonneau was a different situation, and so I'd like to, maybe not now, we don't have the time, but I'd like to really get into what's the difference between communities like that, where you have a lot of individual homes and overhead lines, and you have to get to them individually. It's going to take a while, versus 4,000 people in a particularly hazardous situation. I mean, very fragile population, all underground. There has to be an explanation, but I haven't heard it. So, and probably we don't have time, and you don't have the right map here. But anyway, I'm just eager to get into this at a little deeper level than just we're working on it.
Councilor Lehan would be happy to come back. And I apologize, I don't have the details of that, but I can give you a few of the thoughts. You know, again, we talked about whether it's transmission substation, feeding that underground. But I'll give you an example, which happened to be at the Capitol in Salem, in which the oak trees that fell over took the underground right out and tore it up. The roots of the trees just pulled it right out and broke the wire.
And maybe that was...
I can't speak to this one, but I'd love to investigate that for you and bring back, word on it, because there should be how can we harden that? I guess is kind of the
Right,
question.
right.
Is there a way to do something different? I know there's been some automation, a few things that have happened in the community, but maybe the lines that do feed that underground, at some point, is there a grove of trees that we need to work on?
There's one coming from the east and the other one's coming from the west. One's coming up from the south. I don't know, but I don't have any information about how to increase resiliency or harden anything because I don't know what the problem was.
So we can take that back and let us please come back with some information for you on Charbonneau specifically.
Maybe
that's a
when
great one
we
to
have this
point out.
working session.
Yes, I think it would be good to work with the city manager to arrange that meeting. Maybe first it's a staff presentation, and we can, let's work together to plan that next presentation.
What I heard is an explanation for what happened at Charbonneau.
Right.
Well, that's the main one, so that we kind of understand. I feel like I understand the situation in Old Town.
Right. That was a transformer that
And the
tree.
rest of, Villebois didn't have any significant problems, Parker Merrifield didn't have any. We're undergrounded, about, 90% of the town is undergrounded. So we have one that isn't, so one neighborhood that isn't. But anyway, that's, for us to look at our town and say, how do we increase our resiliency, we have to know where we were vulnerable, why we were vulnerable, and what we can do about that.
Great questions. So please, if we could set up the working session.
And
we
there's
appreciate
one other piece that I think would be good to build into that. I attended the session with PGE President Maria Pope, with Clackamas County, where they presented about the some 90-some%. It's a very high percentage of all the trees that fell on the lines were on private property. And they talked about some public education efforts to communicate with private property owners about the types of trees to plant, how to plan ahead. So we would like to learn more about that. Also, we have a lot of communication back and forth with our citizens, and we're a tree city, and I think that would be a good thing to be educated on too, because just like we learned before, it takes all of us to make this, to improve.
We manage about 2.5 million trees, so we'd have to come back and talk on that as well, so thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Appreciate your presentation.
Thank you so much.
And now we will move to National Parks and Recreation Month presentation.
Just making sure that wasn't theirs. Good evening. I'll let these folks leave here. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Gina Troja, and I have the honor of being in front of you tonight to present National Parks and Recreation Month, which is July. For the past 3 months, I've had the pleasure of working with the Parks and Recreation Department as we've searched for a new Park and Rec director. So tonight I'm going to kind of kick it off with a video that the staff has put together for you. So July is National Parks and Recreation Month. It's been celebrated at the national level since 1984. It really is an opportunity for us to not only just highlight the staff that does such great work in our parks and providing recreation programs and our senior services, but it's also an opportunity for all of us to kind of take a moment and pause, think about the value that parks provide in our community, that our recreation programs provide, that our natural spaces provide to our residents, and certainly our senior programs that assist a population that is in need of services in many cases and in need of meals, and the fitness programs that we offer at our senior center. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Beth, who's going to start a video. But before she starts it, this video was done by Roger Moeller, who is one of our parks maintenance employees. He did the entire video on his own. He did all of the videotaping, the editing, the whole thing, and it was really, I think, a labor of love for him. Every one of our Parks and Rec employees is featured in this video. The theme for National Parks and Recreation Month, and I'm going to make sure I get it right, is Our Parks and Recreation Story. And so with that, here is the Wilsonville story.
We are creative.
We are innovative.
We are passionate.
We are dedicated.
We are reliable.
We are resourceful.
We are caring.
We are equipped.
We are serving. We are dependable.
We are committed.
We are proud. We are genuine.
We are positive. We are accountable.
So there's your Parks and Recreation Department. If you are interested in participating in any of the activities that we've scheduled for July, although July is now almost done. There are still some opportunities. If you are interested in doing Tie-Dye Tuesday tomorrow, you can come out to Town Center Park and participate in Tie-Dye Tuesday. There's going to be Chalk the Park in Marossi on Thursday. We had our first movie in the park this last Saturday. For the first time, we did it in Town Center Park, which was quite successful. I had an opportunity to participate in that. And then if you're interested in rubber duckies, there's going to be a rubber ducky giveaway and race in the Marossi water feature next week. So with that, thank you for the opportunity to highlight this department.
Thank you very much. I also see one more thing is we have in Memorial Park on July 21st at 10 a.m. dog leash handout and education. If anybody needs to learn how to use dog leashes.
It's mostly the picking up after the dog.
Right, there's a little more behind that, but I think
That's a separate class.
we now thank you everyone for waiting for us to be a little bit delayed here. I appreciate it. And we have two citizens who have come to the City Council to speak with us today. And I have your cards here. The first is Barbara Lucas. And I think because I have the addresses, they don't have to state them, right? Okay.
Correct.
Yes, you are.
Oops, somebody left their goodies.
Hey, excuse me, ma'am, could you go to this mic over here?
Which one?
Right here? Right here? No, right here. Yeah, perfect.
I guess we've got your own.
All right. I have a stage voice. My grandson inherited it. Hi. I cannot believe how interesting today has been for me. I am a former city planner, and I used to write environmental impact reports, local coastal programs, general plans for cities. Second occupation, it was an RN case manager. Now, the reason that I'm here, I'm sure we've covered Canyon Creek Apartments and fires floods, whatever, the things that are now going to be typical. Because I used to write these EIRs, and I knew global warming was coming. And it seems like we've kind of arrived at a little bit of a tipping point, as you can see by some of the events that have occurred recently. The reason I came initially, I live in Canyon Creek Apartments on the 3rd floor, and it sounds like they're trying to destroy the units by re-roofing. And they're taking off our cement tiles, which have a shelf life, and they're replacing them with shingles, which also has a shorter shelf life. And I was very concerned because this is Tree City, and we have forested areas all around our apartments all over the place. And I was very concerned with fire and trees, fire. There seems to be a relationship there. And with the climate changing as it is, or global warming occurring, the possibility of not having maybe something that's totally fireproof that we had before with the shingles, with the cement tiles. And I was worried that this could spell disaster, as well as the Carlson Roofing Company was tossing the tiles off. And this is summer vacation, children are out of school, and they were practically tossing them out or leaving them. So as an RN case manager, I was really concerned for public safety. What is going to be occurring here? Could we have a disaster, things slip off, whatever? Are shingles going to be sufficient? But all roofing has a shelf life. So I kind of pulled back a little bit from that and did some research. And I noticed things like somebody had left a Christmas tree, and I went to the fire department, showed them a picture on my cell phone of this Christmas tree that'd been there 7 months. And even though I've approached Canyon Creek Apartments, they haven't done anything about it. So I also contacted, being a city planner, the code enforcement officer. Could you speak to them? And so Wednesday, I pulled the Christmas tree.
Oh, excuse me, that I didn't get to remind you at the beginning that you have a 3-minute limit, so that's 3 minutes.
Am I over?
No, but why don't you are normally, but let's just take another minute to wrap up.
Well, what I'm saying is, I had to haul, at 76 years old, I had to haul the Christmas tree to the curb to get rid of it because it's a fire hazard.
Right.
Okay. The second thing is we now have butane and propane tanks that are stored on these 3-story apartments and barbecue equipment. They could tip over, we could have a fire, we could have a lightning strike, and then where would we be? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
I believe you need to phase out these things in apartments. They don't have them. They're banned in California. They have barbecue centers in these apartment complexes where they can take their food, share with neighbors. Okay, you do not need butane propane tanks on each curb. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, so Barbara, I think we didn't get to talk, but you left me a voicemail, and I did connect.
Did I?
You did, and I connected you with the building inspector.
Yes.
And so
he's an excellent fellow.
And he's told me you had a good meeting. So because we are.
He went to Canyon Creek Management, and they did nothing.
So we will talk about this after the meeting, but thank you, and talk some more. So
I want you
the city manager will follow up.
I want you to stop the propane and phase it. New tenants that move into our apartments need to not be allowed to have barbecue units and butane propane units. This could be phased over a period of time and eliminated, and then phased out completely, because it's going to be a public safety issue.
We will study
if you've read any environmental impact reports about what is coming.
Thank you very much, Barbara, for taking time to come down and spending the evening with us, too. Appreciate it. Thank you. And our next citizen is...
Tired, you're sassy.
Thank you. Our next citizen is Frank Westfall. And Frank, I will let you know that you have 3 minutes. I forgot to say that to Barbara, so thank you.
I should be able
And
to
thank
do
you for
that.
joining us.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Frank Westfall, and I live at 7825 Southwest Wilsonville Road in the Senior Living Creekside Apartments behind the community center. Because the community center has been closed for over a year, the seniors have not been able to have a chance to go on any trips. I am trying to get together a trip for the seniors to Cannon Beach with a stopover at Camp 18. The problem is we need a bus. We have looked into the cost of renting a school bus, but those buses don't work well with the handicap and restrooms. We hope to go to in mid-August, but we're flexible on the schedule. We could go any day of the week or a weekend. We have flexibility in our schedule, but we'd like to do it in August. We are wondering if the city could help us with the bus transportation, either with a smart bus or with the cost of the student bus.
Well, thank you for coming to visit our city council meeting and attend the meeting with us and give us that idea. Frank, I'm sorry to hear about the difficulties in being able to do any activities all year. I can imagine how difficult that is. And so the idea that you've presented, I don't know how that would work. Could our city manager?
Well, our transit director's sitting right there, and he knows far more about those regulations. My understanding at a high level is that we can't compete, so we can't use a city resource to compete against a private company.
Okay.
It's federally not allowed, but Mr. Brashear can come up and address that issue. That's a separate question then. Could the city help offset the cost of a charter bus? That's a different question that we haven't done that in the past. I would want to think about that in terms of precedent, but I'm wondering if maybe the senior center, the nonprofit might be able to chip in and pay for that. Maybe the city could provide a match. I'm just kind of spitballing here.
We have to study it, right.
We could look at it, yeah. But Mr. Brashear can address the use of city buses.
Yeah, Mr. Cosgrove is absolutely right. The federal government pretty much prohibits smart TriMet chariots from using the buses for charter. Every quarter, I have to certify that SMART has not engaged in a charter service. It is regulated by, it's actually, I know this by heart, 49, because I've dealt with it for a number of years. It's 49 code, federal regulation, part 604, which
is very good.
And you can look it up, which is obviously a federal regulation that prohibits the use of, because the transit vehicles are primarily paid for with federal dollars. Then,
I see.
And we cannot in any way compete with private firms because technically we could do it for nothing. I mean,
it's unfair.
Exactly. And so,
Mayor, did the gentleman leave his phone number?
Yes, we have the phone number. And so we will.
If he has the phone number there, I will follow up tomorrow.
Actually, yes, I have your phone number, Frank. So the city manager, Mr. Cosgrove, will give you a call.
Okay, I'd just like to make one comment. We did check into charter buses. One wants $1,200 and one wants $1,500.
Yep.
Where the school bus is about $800. And so we were leaning that direction until a suggestion was made for me to make this presentation. And so it came to see if you had more power than he does.
In certain areas I do, but when it comes to transit, I have no power.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Contact now. We're having a meeting with my committee at 10:15 in the morning. So if it's possible to have some comment from you before then,
let
so
me
that
look
I
into
might be able to guide my committee a little bit, I would appreciate it. If
Thank you.
not, we will schedule another meeting.
All right, thank you very much.
I will reach out to you tomorrow, sir, okay?
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
And I do have one last question for the city manager. I guess taking a break for 3 weeks, I forgot to read that citizen input script. Is it okay?
Yeah, I think you're fine. And I don't think anybody's
It's on
going to
the screen. Do we have any more persons wishing to testify? Okay.
Frank, can I clarify your phone number here? 503-522-7475?
That's me. It's just
Okay.
a cell phone, that's all I got, and I carry it with me all the time. But when I was in this meeting, I turned the volume down.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sometimes I turn it down, I forget to turn it up. You know, us old people, we don't have too much confidence in our ability to do things sometimes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Frank, are you related to Westfall Road?
I wish I was, but I'm
No, okay.
Buy you a bus, right?
Indians. You remember Oklahoma, the Indians fell west? Well, all they did was change that to West Fall.
Okay.
Thank you.
I was going to, the other option I was thinking is, obviously Spring Ridge has a bus. If they could, charter the Spring Ridge bus.
It's a good idea. We'll
Buy
follow up
that
on
on a day that Spring Ridge doesn't have it scheduled or something.
Thank you. I just now saw you. So now we'll go to councilor comments and liaison reports, starting with Council President Aukervall.
Sure, thank you. I'll go quick because we're a little bit later this evening than maybe some of our other meetings, but the last couple weeks, let's see, I actually was able to attend to listen into the Mayor Summit that our Mayor Fitzgerald participated in, and that was very interesting to hear what's happening in other cities. And one of the topics that came up was middle housing, actually, which of course our council is having discussions about, and other councils are having discussions as well, and to hear kind of the dialogue that's happening in other cities on that. And let's see, I also attended the Washington County coordinating committee that Mayor Fitzgerald covered in her presentation, and wanted to reiterate the thanks to staff for all of the work on our Citizens Academy this last year, and also note that I very much appreciated that opportunity to interact with the participants and express how impressed I was with their curiosity and the meaningful questions that they had about our city, and also the knowledge that they had about our city and operations and the history of why things have, happened and why things have been planned in certain ways. So I look forward to seeing the future involvement of that group, and want to encourage them to continue to invest themselves in their community through different service opportunities. So very much appreciated that opportunity and event to interact with them. And let's see, coming up this next week, I will attend the Willamette Intake Facilities Board meeting on this coming Monday. There was one other thing that I wanted to call out. I think Ms. Troha gave a list of some of the great Parks and Rec activities this month, and there is a lot going on. I was able to attend the first of the 2 different duck days down at Town Center Park, and that was fun. And there was many youth in our community that were quite excited about the ducks that they received, because everybody did receive a duck. So that was a fun event. But I also wanted to comment on the story walk that Parks and Rec has done in collaboration with our outreach librarian, and just that I thought that was a fantastic project of 2, departments within the city working together to produce something for the community that is quite unique and fun, and a great activity this summer. There's lots going on this summer, so I hope everyone gets an opportunity to check some of those different events out. And that is it for me for this meeting. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Lehan.
Okay. we haven't met since we had the big heat thing, have we?
Right.
That's true.
Correct.
That seemed like a long time ago. But I just want to mention that we did that on that very weekend, we dedicated the Jesse Boone headstone at the Butteville Cemetery. And I know the mayor was there. We had over 50 people show up. On Saturday, we were scheduled for 2 o'clock in the afternoon. A few days before, when we could see the heat was going like this, and it was supposed to be like 106 by the afternoon, I made the executive decision to move it up to 10 o'clock in the morning when it was only like 85. And we kept it to 30 minutes so that we could get out of there and get down to the Butteville store for ice cream. But it was well attended. Over 50 people showed up to dedicate Jesse Boone's marker. If you have a chance, go to the Butteville Cemetery. You'll see it has a beautiful engraving of the ferry that was done by Christopher Chatola-Hart of the high school art director, just recently retired. Anyway, and he was there to talk about the artwork on there. But so finally Jesse has a marker, and his family. And I would just say, with regards to the heat, I think we dodged a bullet there that was, more like by the grace of whatever, that we didn't lose anybody in that event, because in my work with the elderly, they're more likely to be uncomfortable in the cold than they are in the heat, and they get into trouble faster in the heat because they don't recognize that they're failing. And so I think when we do our emergency thing, we need to talk about the heat thing, not just providing cooling centers, which we did an excellent job of with the library, but what people can do as individuals to keep their body temperature cool, because there are other things you can do, and I never saw it presented on any of the TV shows or anything about wearing a cold compress around your neck or that kind of thing to keep your body temperature down. So anyway, we should talk about that as well as the ice thing.
Good point. We are going to be doing a special 2-page emergency management and response and recovery, Boone's Ferry Messenger specific in September, because that's emergency preparedness. So we will include information on heat and ice and things that we know that we're now going to be dealing with for the foreseeable future. Yeah. So we'll include information on that in that BFM.
You remember when it was cold and they were without heat, half of Charbonneau exited and went to a hotel.
Right.
But in the heat, they tend to just sit there.
Yeah.
And also how neighbors can interact with each other in the heat as they would in an ice storm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just doing welfare checks on folks that are vulnerable populations. Yeah.
Councilor West.
Thank you. I'm going to be super brief. I was able to attend with Councilor Linville the Wilsonville Community Enhancement meeting, and it was really great to see the board be so collaborative, and it was fun to be really collaborative with the community members on how to delegate the funds from that from the ice storm for the damage. Yeah, so it was fantastic. There's a number of organizations and small community HOAs and larger ones and all the rest that were there presenting, and then we were able to kind of team up as a group and figure out the best way to allocate those funds. And I think it's going to make a serious difference in those communities. It was a good chunk of funds we were able to give. I think we settled on like $80,000, and it's going to come before the council, split up between everybody. The presentations were fantastic and interesting, and it was great to work with that group. I want to take a minute to just think we had an unusual 4th of July after the giant heat storm. We all came together offline as a council and had to make a policy decision about how to hopefully mitigate possible fire damage or issues that came up, and there were some concerns by the community members, and I just want to thank the community members that participated in working to keep their community safe, and that were good citizens and good neighbors in that event. I think from where I live and from what I could tell by my house, I saw that in Villebois. And then I want to thank the council for being so for being reactive, my colleagues on the council for being reactive and necessarily like jumping in during the 4th of July holiday to do something like that. So thank you guys. And then my last little thing here is I'm super excited and happy because we got a new puppy in our house. So I'm not sleeping a lot, but she's adorable. Her name is Bailey, and if you don't follow me on Facebook, you will see her all over the place now. So yeah, she's pretty awesome.
Well, thank you. I can't compete with that. I don't have a new puppy. I do have some wild bunnies that have come into my backyard somehow, so I won't let them.
That's also cute.
So, thank you. We'll now move to the consent agenda, and would like to ask if the city attorney could read the items on consent.
Certainly. Resolution number 2907, a resolution of the City of Wilsonville authorizing the city manager to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Sherwood to share costs of the Willamette River Water Treatment Plant expansion project. Resolution number 2908, a resolution of the City of Wilsonville authorizing the city manager to execute a professional services agreement with PFM Financial Advisors, LLC for financial advisor services. Resolution number 2913, a resolution of the City of Wilsonville authorizing the sole source procurement renewal of a 3-year service agreement with Meter Readers, LLC. Resolution number 2915, a resolution and order amending resolution number 2899 to further extend the local state of emergency and emergency measures as authorized by resolution number 2803. And finally, the minutes of the June 21, 2021 City Council meeting.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the consent, items on consent?
Your Honor, I move that we approve the consent agenda as read.
Is there a second?
Second.
We spent a lot of time discussing this in the work session, so I presume there's no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. That brings us to new business, and I would like to ask the staff to make the report on all of the resolutions.
I'll start by reading resolution number 2909, a resolution authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the Urban Renewal Agency of the City of Wilsonville pertaining to short-term subordinate urban renewal debt for the year 2000 Plan District.
Okay. Do you want to just read the second resolution, and they'll just vote on them separately?
If that's
Because it's
easier.
going to be the same report.
Sure.
Exactly.
Resolution number 2910, a resolution authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the Urban Renewal Agency of the City of Wilsonville pertaining to short-term subordinate urban renewal debt for the West Side Plan District.
All right. Hello, I'm Keith Katko, the city's Assistant Finance Director. You may remember this discussion during the budget process. These are the overnight loans from the general fund to the Urban Renewal Agency. Of course, the Urban Renewal tax increment can only be accessed through debt financing to pay for the infrastructure and the CIPs that are going to be built in the Urban Renewal District. So this sets out the terms and conditions for both urban renewal overnight loans. Resolution 2909 is $9,811,524 overnight loan from the general fund to the year 2000 district, and then resolution 2910 is for $6,400,000 overnight lending from the general fund to the West Side Urban Renewal District. And so if you have any additional questions, that's kind of what it is.
Are there any clarifying questions for Mr. Katko? Do I have a motion to approve?
Quick question on the procedure.
Oh,
on order procedure.
Clarify.
If we're going to make a motion, do we have to make them individually in new business, or can we just say in one motion in both of them? That's okay.
You have to make a motion and a second on
each one.
Each one separate. Okay, sorry, I just wanted to clarify that.
thank you. So do I have a...
Your Honor, I move to approve resolution number 2909.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, or excuse me, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Do I have a motion on resolution 2910?
Your Honor, I move to approve resolution number 2910.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. And could the city attorney now read resolution 2911?
Yes, I will. It's been suggested that since we have the same staff presenter on the next two, and they're both grants, that I'll read both of them, but they are different grants for different purposes, so you'll do exactly like what you just did and vote separately. But I can save a little time by reading them both right now. Resolution number 2911, a resolution of the City of Wilsonville supporting a 2021-23 Planning Assistance Direct Grant application to the Oregon Department of Land Conservation and Development for the 2023 Wilsonville Housing Needs Analysis. And resolution number 2912, a resolution of the City of Wilsonville supporting a 2021-23 Planning Assistance Direct Grant for application to the Oregon Department of Land Conservation and Development for additional funding of housing affordability components of the Frog Pond East and South Master Plan.
Thank you. Again, Dan Pauly, Planning Manager. Good to be back with you tonight. So, you know, we have a lot of housing work to do. We're working on this middle housing project now, which is partially funded through a similar grant as these applications are for. So as you're aware, we're starting up our Frog Pond East and South project, which will go through the end of 2022. And right on the tail end of that, we'll be doing this housing needs analysis, which is a timeline directed by the state by House Bill 2003, which was adopted as the same time as House Bill 2001. And it directs communities around the state to do these housing needs analysis and meet some new standards regarding that, and actually has specific timeframes in which cities do that. So the legislature has budgeted funds to support these types of projects. And so we do want to take advantage of that. For the housing needs analysis, part of the project will go beyond the biennium. And so as noted, the city will need to be prepared to cover the rest. However, we do hope that the budget for the next biennium beyond that will also provide some grant opportunities to help with that. But at this point, it's too early to say. The other component was for Frog Pond. There's some specific project components that are scoped to really focus in on finding those affordable housing opportunities, especially for ownership, and we look forward to those project components. We feel that with all the competing things for the grant funds that we receive from Metro and that the city's budgeted, that there's opportunities to enhance some of those components. And so we're asking for the state's support to further do that as well. So happy to answer any questions and look forward to continuing to work on this important housing work with support of our partners at Metro and the state.
Anyone have any clarifying questions? Hearing none.
Your Honor, I move to approve resolution number 2911.
Second?
I'll second.
No discussion. All in favor of resolution 2911?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion passes 4-0. Do I have a motion for resolution 2912?
Your Honor, I move to approve resolution number 2912.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. That brings us to city manager's business. We'll say again, we have a very detailed report we can read.
I don't have anything additional other than I'm not going to Hawaii ever again because every time I do, something bad happens.
But it wasn't,
Exactly, you should have learned by now.
2 years ago, it was the apartments in Villebois, and this year it was the water line, so thank God Gina was here to
well, next time you can just take a vacation by participating in one of our parks programs.
No, I'll just watch the web
Story walk.
at Napili Bay and call it good.
That's it. All
Get a
right.
duck.
Thank you. Thank you. Your staff did a wonderful job while
They
you were
always do.
gone. I'm glad you got a vacation.
Thank you.
Our staff has all worked really hard this year. Do we have any legal business, Barbara?
No, Your Honor.
With that, I am going to adjourn the meeting of the City Council at 8:29. And we will now convene a meeting of the Urban Renewal Agency. Right?
Want to go right into it? Or
Go right into it. I don't think we need to stop. If everyone is good to keep moving.
It would be nice if it was here, but it's never right here.
Oh, yeah, because on the other one.
It's in the other, it's in the original email.
I know, I got to get out and come back in.
If you're in the AI, you can just tab over to it if you've downloaded it.
No, I can't.
Oh, she's got it.
There,
Okay,
I'll
thank
look at
you.
that one.
That's old school.
Paper.
I will call to order a meeting of the Urban Renewal Agency. And may I ask for a roll call, please?
Member West,
Present.
Member Ockerville, here. Member Lehan,
Here.
Chair Fitzgerald,
Here.
and Member Linville is excused.
This is a chance for citizen input and opportunity for visitors to address the Urban Renewal Agency Board on items not on the agenda. It is also the time to address items that are on the agenda but are not scheduled for a public hearing. Staff and the board will make every effort to respond to questions raised during citizens input before tonight's meeting ends or as quickly as possible thereafter. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And I see that we do not have anyone on standby for citizen input. That brings us to the consent agenda.
The consent agenda consists of the minutes of the June 21, 2021 URA meeting.
Your Honor, I move that we approve the consent agenda as read.
And I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve this consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 4-0. Moving to new business, will the attorney please read the resolution number 319?
Absolutely, and I'll do the same as I did during the other meeting since they're related. I'll read both and then we'll vote separately. URA Resolution Number 319, a resolution authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Wilsonville pertaining to short-term subordinate in urban renewal debt for the year 2000 Plan District for the purpose of funding the construction of capital improvement project by the agency. URA Resolution Number 320, a resolution authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Wilsonville pertaining to short-term subordinate urban renewal debt for the West Side Plan District for the purpose of funding the construction of capital improvement project by the agency.
So I'm Keith Katko, Assistant Finance Director. This is deja vu all over again. This is the payback of the urban renewal loan to the general fund for both these districts. So that's that.
Any clarifying questions? Do I have a motion for resolution 319?
I move to approve URA Resolution Number 319.
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded. All in favor of URA Resolution 319, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Do I have a motion for URA Resolution 320?
Your Honor, I move that we approve URA Resolution Number 320.
Second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of Resolution 320, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. We'll adjourn the meeting of the Urban Renewal Agency at 8:33.